Vegetable.
Hello, Frala.
Hmm?
I need provisions for 300 miles.
You're grinning from ear to ear. Finally, you've got the chance to see something of the world.
300? Tungdil, that's no errand. That's an epic journey. Wait, I've got just the right thing. But make sure the cook doesn't see.
I'm going to Blacksaddle to return a few things to a former apprentice in the Magus.
You pocket the rye bread, sausages, and ham. Enough food for the first few days of your journey.
Perhaps I'll even meet some dwarves on the way.
Frala throws you a cautious glance. It's a tricky subject that you can't help but broach.
There aren't dwarves down here. You're the only one in Idderslane, as far as we know.
I know, but I can't just have been born out of a rock. Somewhere in the mountains, I have a clan. Maybe even a family.
Yes. Maybe.
Frala has reminded you more than once that Lot Yonan wrote to the dwarf clans and none of them were missing a dwarf boy.
I've got a present for you.
You take out a symbol of protection that you've carefully made from 3 horseshoe nails.
It's not the finest jewellery in Girdlegard.
One look at Frala's face makes it clear that it doesn't matter. She glows with happiness as she takes the pendant.
For me? But why?
Because you don't see me as an oddity, and you're like a little sister to me.
You could have said. But you settle with a shrug and a crooked smile.
I have to go. I've got a long journey ahead of me.
I wish you the blessing of Palandial and Vracus to protect you from all danger on your journey. Here, a talisman. Whenever you look at it, think of me.
Frala winks at you mischievously.
And of getting me a nice present.
You picture all the fantastic adventures that await you on your journey and are raring to go. But then you think about the possible dangers and ask yourself how you're planning to tackle this journey without a weapon. There was a time when you could hardly lift the heavy hammer. Now you barely notice it anymore, and it feels like an extension of your arm. Smithing is in your blood. This is where you swung the forge hammer for the first time 30 cycles ago. No one taught you the craft. It was enough for you to watch Lot Yonan's old smith at work. Whenever the workshop was empty, you practiced.
I wonder if dwarves ask Vracus for help on long journeys.
The figure on the homemade altar doesn't answer.
If I hurry, I might be back in time for Sonia's birthday.
You're longing to see her face when you give her your homemade present.
Oh, nice to see you again, Lotjonen. It must have been an age since we last met face to face.
Nudin, welcome. Please, sit down.
No, thank you, my friend. These are urgent matters, and I don't have much time. You must come to Leos Nudin immediately. The perished land is stirring.
Are you sure? What makes you think that?
I found out about 60 orbits ago, during a visit to the borders. Our magical barriers have weakened and become porous. The Elfar have left their land, and a huge horde of orcs have marched into Girdlegard.
Were you able to strengthen the spell with your magic?
No. I can't repair the damage alone. We need the combined power of the 6. The other 4 are already on their way here, but we need your help too.
I will set off for Parista without delay.
Oh, and as you're coming, could you also take the opportunity to bring back the things that I lent to you?
Of course. I have them already packed in a bag.
Oh, thank you. We'll be expecting you.
Utterly blinded by the sunlight, you squeeze your eyes tightly shut after only a few steps. The time spent underground has made you so sensitive to light that you're forced to seek shelter in the shade of a mighty oak. You reach a small lake by a birchwood. Your feet hurt and your eyes still sting in the unaccustomed sunlight, but a smile spreads across your face nonetheless. You've covered a decent distance on the first day of your big journey. You pitch your camp and lie down to sleep on the hard forest floor. When you awake in the morning, your legs are stiff and achy. Trying not to feel sorry for yourself, you throw your rucksack over your shoulder. You're a dwarf, and dwarves don't complain. Around midday, with the sun high in the sky and the first beads of sweat appearing on your forehead, you see something move next to the road, a few hundred meters ahead. Some crows are pecking at something in the long grass. The creaking leather armor, the clattering rucksack, and a dwarf's inability to be quiet makes the crows flap around as you move from one bush to another. You give up trying to be stealthy, stand up straight, and see 2 human bodies in the flattened grass. You don't see any signs of a struggle in the area where the corpses are lying. Were they stabbed by a companion? A stranger could hardly have crept up on them with such sparse cover. A rucksack that probably belonged to one of the dead. It seems to have been searched and then thrown away carelessly. You find a few implements, some provisions, and a map. A route is drawn on it from Parista, Nudin's capital, to Lotjonen's vaults. You look down on a tall, broadly built man. He's wearing dark brown leather armor that is strengthened with iron plates. There's a sword lying next to him. Was he trying to defend himself against something? Or someone? There is no blood on the sword.
Vracus.
There are some narrow stab wounds in the man's chest. The cuts are too big to have been made by arrows, but too small for sword wounds. A slender man lies in front of you, dressed in an expensive robe. It is in the colors of Turgur the Fair-Faced, one of the 6 magi. The dead man must be one of Turgur's famuli. You don't see any wounds.
Does this mean that Turgur the Fair-Faced is in Porista and wanted to send Lotyonen a message? And if so, why didn't he use magic? Did he want to contact him without anyone noticing? Why all this secrecy?
The man has the same incisions. It's clear that both men were killed by the same weapon. But what that weapon might be, you cannot say.
Nothing.
You scour the area once more and ask yourself what to do next. It's time-consuming and strenuous work digging shallow graves in the ground with a stick and covering the corpses with a few stones. But it should at least keep the crows from their feasting for a while. You continue on your way so as to put a few more miles between you and your grisly find before night falls. As the gable end of a small farmhouse and a barn appear from behind a hilltop, you hear the loud cries of children at play. A girl runs along the path laughing, followed by a small boy with a big stick in his hand. The boy is trying to catch up his sister with a determined look on his face, but is finding it difficult to keep his short legs under control on the uneven path. You walk towards the children. As you raise your hand to greet them, the boy catches sight of you. His eyes grow wide, and he points to you with a chubby little finger. All he can manage to say is, "There." Now the girl has turned to face you too. Before you can say a word, she lifts her little brother up into her arms and runs screaming towards the farmhouse. Without rushing, you follow the children to the farmhouse into which they've disappeared. After a few moments, they reappear, accompanied by their parents. Their father is a thick-set man with grey hair.
I am Opatia. This is my wife, Remsa.
The blonde woman nods a greeting almost imperceptibly and clasps her daughter tightly to her. She looks you over with an anxious expression.
It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Tungdal.
You try to make your voice sound as harmless as possible.
Over the last few days, have you seen 2 travelers heading east?
Opatia looks at his wife, but she shakes her head.
Why do you ask?
I found them. 2 dead bodies on the side of the road. A good day's march east from here.
Dead bodies?
She hastily covers her son's ears.
Was it orcs?
Remsa, what would orcs be doing up here? It was probably just bandits.
I'm sorry if I scared your wife and children.
The man waves dismissively.
No, no. It's just that my fair woman is especially jumpy these days.
The orcs have been spotted near Calmstead. You should take it more seriously.
The farmer's wife clutches her daughter even tighter before the girl finally protests. The boy steps forward excitedly and cuts the air with his stick.
If strangers come, we're supposed to run away, but I can hit them too.
Opatya pats his son on the head, laughing.
We're safe. The orcs have no reason to come so far north.
Wouldn't it be better to move to one of the bigger villages if there are orcs around?
The farm is our livelihood. We can't just leave the place. The fields don't look after themselves. King Tilligorn's cavalry will take care of the orcs, or Lord Yonan and his magi.
But the cavalry can't be everywhere at once. Even a handful of orcs would be enough to finish us.
Once the seeds are planted, I'll build the hideaway, just as you wish. But what use is a hideaway if we've nothing to eat in the autumn?
We can't be sure whether the orcs will come here, but what is for certain is that you will starve without a harvest.
That's exactly what I said.
Opatya lays a hand on his wife's shoulder.
Don't worry, I'll build a hideaway as soon as everything else is taken care of.
But
Trust me, even the good dwarf here says it is so. And if anyone knows about orcs, then it's the dwarves.
Remsa nods slowly, then looks towards the ground glumly.
If you say so.
You bid farewell and set off on your way. The children follow you for a while, before saying their goodbyes in laughter and running back towards the farm. You see a flickering light through the trees some way from the path. It might come from a campfire. You creep through the undergrowth towards the fire, but can't prevent your armor from clattering and small twigs from breaking under every heavy step you take. You curse quietly to yourself, but go on until you can see what's going on. 3 broad-shouldered men with axes sit at a campfire, on which 2 rabbits are sizzling. It's only thanks to the fact that the men are joking loudly with one another and not paying attention to their surroundings that they haven't discovered you yet. You follow the path for about a mile and then set up camp. The next morning, you continue your journey. You reach the banks of the Warder and can see Axeldale on the other side, but there isn't a bridge for far and wide. The fishermen's boats glide over the water, which sparkles in the sun. None of the men seem to notice you while they throw out their nets. You call to the nearest fisherman. He looks across at you briefly before turning away and getting back to his work. You're going to have to find another way of crossing the river. You leave the peaceful banks of the river behind you and continue on your way. You look down on a large village on the banks of the Warder. Some of the village is built on stilts in the river. A wooden bridge spans the fast-flowing water. A huge wooden palisade has been erected to protect the village from attack. Your eyes roam the land on the other side of the river. You estimate that you will soon have completed half of the journey to Blacksaddle, but you still can't make out the mountain on the horizon. The guards on the palisade are watching you. Their armor looks well cared for and well made. The smith who made them knew what he was doing. You conclude that the men depend on the protection the armor offers and aren't just wearing them to look good. They're certainly not villagers.